Thank you so much for being here today. On today's episode, we will be interviewing Sian Beilock, the president of Barnard. So thank you so much for being here.
No, I'm happy to do it.
So we have a fun way to start. We want to start exactly where all of the students at Barnard began, by asking you a question from the application. So here we go. At Barnard, academic inquiry starts with bold questions. What are some bold questions you've pondered before Barnard that got you excited and that helped lead you to where you are today?
Yeah, I really wanted to know why I sometimes didn't perform well when it mattered most and what we could do about it. So I was interested in doing a little research and really understanding how the brain and body work together to lead to optimal performance.
Amazing. So how have you continued to explore these questions, starting as a professor, as a university admin, and as a president?
Yeah, so actually what I did when I ran a lab as a professor, I had undergraduates and graduate students and postdocs, is not so dissimilar from what I do as a university president, because it's about helping other people really manage great ideas and put them into effect. I did that with my graduate students. I got to think with them about ideas they had and the experiments they were running. We thought as a group with undergrads, postdocs, PhDs, and I do a lot of that now. I have a great senior team, and one of the things that I get most excited about is helping other people put their great ideas into practice.
Thank you, amazing. So during your time in research, you did a lot of research about choking and, like you said, how we perform under pressure. So I am curious, when was the last time you choked? If you can think of one, and has understanding the science of choking really helped you manage stressful situations, being a president, and I'm sure the stress of life?
Yeah, well, first of all, I choke all the time, and I think, part of what continual learning means is putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and not always being great. So I was thinking about this, I saw the questions, and a few months ago I gave a talk to a room full of really sort of high-powered chief investment officers who worked at all sorts of financial firms across the country, and I remember starting my talk and I just didn't feel so great about what I was doing. I was like thinking as I was giving my talk, do they really care? And I definitely think I did not perform at my best because I was worried about what they were thinking. And it was interesting because I gave a very similar talk a couple weeks later. I sort of prepped myself. I reminded myself that I've done this a lot. People tend to like it. I felt much better afterwards, and I think the talk was better, really because my mindset had changed.
Very cool. So to further that, in a nutshell, how would you kind of like cater that advice towards students who might be entering the workforce? I think when you enter the workforce, not only can you have a sense of you might choke or you might be worried you might not be able to perform properly at your team, but you also might have imposter syndrome. You might wonder why you're there. So what advice would you give to Barnard students who are leaving the nest?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say that feeling like an imposter, that you've tricked everyone into thinking that you should be there, is not just for Barnard students, it's not just for women. Everyone feels that way and all through their career. I think the key is to use that sort of uncertainty and anxiety as fuel rather than fire. And so the way I talk about this is feeling like you don't know everything is okay. It's a sign that you need to look in your surroundings, get feedback, take that feedback, even when it feels uncomfortable, and use it to do something different, or just increase your exposure in a particular area. So the biggest insight I would have is it's okay to feel uncomfortable, and that's how we learn, and it's totally normal. And the question is what you do with it. How do you ask more questions? How do you use it to evolve and learn yourself? And frankly, it's hard advice to follow. I hate doing things where I don't feel like I'm performing at my best or I could have done something different. But when you sort of sit with it and use it to change your perspective or what you might do in another situation, that's how you get better.
So I know that you just said it's okay to be uncomfortable, and I definitely feel like that's been a theme, but I am curious, there is an aspect of being uncomfortable, and then there's actual failure, like failing a class or really messing up. Like when you did your talk, it was definitely not your best performance, but you didn't totally fail.
That's true.
What happens when you totally fall down?
Yeah. first of all, like, I think probably our perception of when we totally fall down is probably not as much as it actually
That's
is.
true.
But yeah, I mean, like, we can do poorly in a test, or we don't get a promotion, or we don't get the job we want, or, you know, sometimes we fail, right? And so the question is, I have had so many situations where I wanted something so badly and didn't get it. And then where are the other opportunities? Like, how do you look around? I think from what I've seen of really successful leaders, that is the sign of being a successful leader. You find a different door, you take a different opportunity, and even when you really think you wanted one thing and you're really disappointed you didn't get it, using that again, like, to change directions. And it comes back to being uncomfortable, I think, and moving to a new opportunity, or being able to adjust your idea of what success is.
So on a personal level, speaking of being uncomfortable and pivoting, and like definitely like using that, if I failed, okay, now I'm gonna take a new direction. I'm curious, you started off, you majored in cognitive psychology,
Yeah.
and then you became a professor. Did you always know what your path was going to be? And did you have a vision, or did you let your failures guide you?
Yeah, absolutely not. Like, again, I think our paths are not linear. I had like 8 different majors my first year. I had no idea what I wanted to be. I took a philosophy class. I think I got the worst grade on the class. On my first test, I ended up dropping out. Like, of that class, I knew maybe that wasn't what I wanted to do. But I found cognitive science because I thought it was amazing that you could spend a career studying like how people operate and perform. I went to graduate school not really knowing what I wanted to do, and there I, got excited about this idea of being a professor, and that you could have a life of learning and teaching and getting smarter at what you know and learning more. And so it was not preordained. I think most people don't have any idea. They take different paths, and I think that's what's exciting.
That is exciting. Yeah, I think that it's so exciting to not know what's in front of you, and it can also be scary.
Yeah, and I mean, I say all this stuff like, be uncomfortable, it's okay not to have a preordained path, but there's also a huge element of like also practicing being self-compassionate and controlling that anxiety. Like, I ruminate a lot. I don't know if anyone else does, but I ruminate a lot, but I use some of my own advice and advice of colleagues. Like, sometimes if I'm really worried about something, I'll give myself 10 minutes to like write it down and think about it. And then I stop myself. I think about ways I can be compassionate with myself. Like, we are our own worst critics, and that voice in our head is like the most important voice. And so I'm not saying any of this is easier. I'm constantly practicing how to take negative feedback or get better at what I do. And it's something I think we all have to work on.
I agree. And I think one more question I have for you is about passion. So Barnard is a school that really promotes learning things you're passionate about, and like exploration of classes, which is something I love. As I'm a senior, so I'm about to enter the workforce, and I'm curious on if you have an opinion on the balance between following your passion and then just trying to take a next step, and like the pace of that.
Yeah. I don't have any like special amazing advice there. I would just say that, new passions open up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, doing things you're interested in and following that are really great, but I wouldn't be closed off to the idea that you're going to find other things that you're really passionate about as well. And it is about taking opportunities that are unexpected. I mean, it sounds a little cliche, but it really is. Like, I went to do my PhD in Michigan after living in California all my life. That was a big step and something that was super unexpected, and but it opened up my eyes to a whole new world.
Was Michigan your top choice, or was that?
No, I didn't get into UC Berkeley, and so I went to Michigan State. It was a great place to be, but it definitely was not where I wanted to go.
And then now you ended up
It
here,
worked
so
out. Yeah,
things
it worked
do
out
work
okay. And I didn't get all the jobs I wanted when I left, when I had my PhD. I mean, I think that's a continuous theme through my life, that all the things I thought I wanted so badly, and I saw my path ahead, some of them worked out, some of them didn't, but like I tried to, once I got over being upset about whatever I didn't
Right.
get, figure out what the next step was.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Such an insightful conversation. And this has just been amazing, so we really appreciate it.
What are you doing when you graduate?
When I don't know yet. So I'm graduating next year, mid-year.
Okay, so you have a little
So I have a
time.
little more
Have you
time.
gone to Barnard?
No, not yet.
They're great.
I know, I will
You have to go.
I actually, it's on my to-do list to make an appointment with them.
The peer career counselors will help you with your CV and just open you up to lots of opportunities.
Yeah,
And there's like a whole thing where you can chat with opponents in different fields. You gotta do it.
I will. Actually, on that note, I do have a question because I think we have a lot of STEM listeners
Yeah.
in this podcast, and I'm a STEM student, so I study neuroscience,
Yeah.
which is great, and I love it, but I'm not pre-med, and I also am not sure about going into academia. Do you have any advice on like that topic if you're not sure, especially in the STEM area?
If you're at Barnard, you have to go to Beyond Barnard because they will help you understand all the different. You've acquired so many skills, and so you could go work in STEM in a company, but you could just take those skills and go work in a totally different field.
Right.
And all the kinds of things that you've done around creativity, around thinking logically, around communication and writing, like all of those would be really applicable in all different sorts of fields.
Right.
So we really do mean it when we say your major doesn't dictate your career path,
Yeah.
and you're learning how to think, not what to think. And that's where like now you get to, I can think of 10 different places that you would be great.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
All right.